Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me today on the first day of 2025. I just want to go in and I'm going to make sure everybody's finding me today. I hope everyone had a good evening, whether you had any activities going on or not. I am very much getting over whatever everybody else is dealing with. I've literally been in bed for the last week. Fitness session with you. So I'm almost bronchitis-y. So if I do cough, I apologize in advance. I had so many folks I invited to this session today. And I know many of you are new to your vibration plates, and I just want to give you the best start. So where am I showing up here? Hang on. Group. No, that's not going to work. Hang on 2 secs here. Link. And nope. Hang on. Sorry, guys. Here, I'm just trying to get this into the VIP group where many of you follow. VI. Isn't that strange? Doesn't want to come up for me. Oh, well, I'm going to have to go with who's here today. So if you are joining me today, I'm just giving everybody a couple of minutes. We're usually on a bit of a delay by the time this streams out to all of the social circles. And if you are just starting on your vibration plate, I want to encourage you to be conservative, which I will explain once I get over for the demo here. I don't know why the VIP group isn't coming up. Life Pro VIP. So strange. There we go. Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to post this in the group. Now for today's session, if you are just starting out and you're dealing with anything chronic, fatigue, any of that kind of stuff, I want to encourage you. You'll notice I've got a bar height stool. I always have a bar height stool. It's a very common tool that I use, whether you're dealing with mobility issues, whether you just want to take a break, whether I talk you to sleep. There's lots of reasons to have that available for you. And today I talked about 5 moves, and we're going to follow it up with some massage. So I'm going to get right to that. Make sure. Yes, I see some of you coming through here now. Okay, so if you are joining me, I am going to leave some time at the end, as I always do, for questions. So if you do have any for me, I ask you to just wait till I come back to camera. If you're joining me, let me know if you can see and hear me on the other end. If you're having any issues at all, just make a comment. Please be sure that you're following me on the Life Pro main page. If you do want to make a comment, any comments you make through the feed on the VIP group or other channels don't come through on the live stream to me on my end. So hop over to the Life Pro main page if you want to interact. And we're going to get started here. So I have my trusty dusty Rumblex 4D Plus model, and I have my stool. I'm a little bit brighter than I want my brain to be. I'm blinding myself with my lights a little too much. That's better. Okay, so whether you are able to join me for the standing portion, the majority of what we are doing today will be standing and getting down on the ground. So as always, with all there's no perfect way to work out at the gym. There's no perfect amount of reps to lift for weight or how much to lift. It's very much an individual thing. And a vibration plate is very similar in that there's a couple of things that you are in control of that you can manipulate to contribute to your experience, whether you want it to be more challenging, whether you want it to be kinder. I see someone has commented, thank you. you can see and hear me. Thank you, Crystal, for letting me know that. I couldn't see your name from this far away with my old eyeballs. So all of my sessions are in what's referred to as oscillating movement. There's different vibration plate movement styles. Some move one way, some move multiple ways. This model is a combo model, and it offers 3 different movement types. To get it into oscillating, I'm just working in manual mode today. And the first thing that you need to understand if you're a newbie, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get to the workout, but you're always in control. There's a mentality out there that if we go really wide with our feet, we're getting more benefit. But what you're getting is more impact. You're moving more. If you're just starting out, or if you're coming from a chronic place, I want you thinking functional. So feet no more than hip width apart. If it feels at any time too strong, too intense, bring the feet closer to the center. I complement this with a mid speed. Everybody thinks start slow. Start thinking more, start conservatively. A slow speed on a vibration plate in oscillating movement, it's an advantage down the road, but to start out, it's very wobbly. It's very destabilizing. It's very choppy. It's not very comfortable on like hypermobile joints and arthritis and things like that. So bring your feet closer, get going faster, and you're going to feel it's a little smoother. It's more comfortable as far as how it feels to you, the user. The first exercise we're going to do is a little bit of a warm-up. It is seated. Then we're going to move to some standing stuff. This is a 2-part move. A lot of my stuff is I always like to combine things. So we're going to start with what I call some foot pumps, which is simply coming up onto the toes like we're doing a baby calf raise. Then we come back down on the heels and we raise the balls of the feet. This is going to stretch, strengthen the calves. I've been doing a lot of chats this year about tightness in the calves, weakness in the calves. The calves have to do all the work. They have to return all the blood and the lymph and keep you upright. And it's as especially we get older, important to keep these muscles strong and these areas of the body good and flexible. So this is part 1 of the move. For the upper body, we're going to add what I call goalposts. So we're going to bring our arms up to a 90-degree angle. And while we go forward, up onto the toes, we're going to bring the arms forward, trying to touch the elbows, keeping them at a good 90-degree, nice straight spine, good engaged core. Come down on the heels and come back like we're trying to push our chest out and touch those shoulder blades together. So do this for 30 to 40 seconds, up to a minute maybe. Kind of gets the top and the bottom going at the same time. Time this with your breathing, maybe some good tunes. Oh man, I'm still running a pretty good fever, guys. 1 second. Hey, could you guys click the heat down just a hair? Thank you. My family's upstairs. So, okay. This one on its own, if you spend a lot of time seated, you're feeling stiff, you're getting ready to do other things, it's a great little warm-up. Like I say, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute on this one. Especially if you lack the ability to stand for long periods. Any of these seated yoga moves, any of these seated chair exercises, this is a great way to use your vibration plate. A vibration plate is simply an environment that makes your exercises, your stretches, whatever you're doing on them, more effective in less time and kinder to your body. So it's a tool that makes fitness movement even easier. So the next variation we're going to move into is a standing exercise. If you fatigue easily, if you can't stand for long periods, have your stool here if you at any time want to sit down and take a break. I want your knees bent. There was a question in the group. There's probably a question in the group once, twice a week on this. Should I bend my knees, and why do I need to bend my knees? Well, if you don't bend your knees, long term, it's probably going to bug the knees and the hips a little bit because the bones are doing all the moving. But you'd have to do it for a pretty long time with pretty wide feet, and hopefully before you continued for a 10-minute period, you'd realize it's not very nice on the head. Shakes the ears. My sinuses are going nuts. Yet the minute you bend the knees, things suppress. We're trying to work our muscles and exercise them. When you stand on the floor and lock your legs versus bend your knees, this is your skeleton holding you up. This is your muscles holding you up. So you want those muscles to be engaged, is the primary reason. Secondary reason is it suppresses the vibration. You don't feel it in the head. It's not harmful, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. So the first standing exercise is a pelvic tilt, and we're going to add those goalposts we were doing seated once we get the first part. So we're just going to tilt the bum slightly forward, clenching those butt cheeks. Then we're going to tilt it back. We're not looking like this. Nothing to do with legs. You might only be moving a half inch. We're going to tilt the bum forward, hold, 2, 3, back, 2, 3. Now we're going to add those arms. Forward. I'll put my piece of paper down. Forward. Hold those. Clench those butt cheeks. Back. And you'll feel a nice little stretch, arch in that low back. Try to touch those shoulder blades together. Forward. Back. All this is doing is loosening and limbering you up for what I'm going to do to you next. This on its own is also a great little warm-up. If you spend too much time seated, you just want to do a little bit more total body stuff while you're standing. Add some weights to your hands. You are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. Excuse me, there it is. All right. Now we're going to get into some mean stuff, and this is where you'll see my fatigue levels kicking right in. So if you're not squatting now, and I say, you know, doing it as an exercise, most people don't exercise for purpose, but it is the new year. So we're all under that pressure of all these commitments we've made to everybody and posted on Facebook. Commit to yourself first. I don't like posting New Year's resolutions because I tend to derail or modify them throughout the course of the season. But a squat, if you're just starting out, is probably the best exercise you can practice. It's going to offer you all kinds of benefits as far as strength, improving your mobility, your flexibility, your balance. Anytime you spend on a vibration plate, there are what I call some primary benefits that happen regardless. You don't have to do anything special. Things like balance, better lymphatic movement and circulation, decreased swelling, less pain. There's things, whether you're standing, sitting, or doing some of the exercises, because you're doing them on a plate that adds the stimulation of movement, you're getting more benefit, whatever you're doing. You don't have to do something specific. The reason I like to do a squat, and a squat's going to look different for everybody, depending on your range of motion, depending on whether you got troublesome joints. My first tip is go as low as your range of motion allows. It's not about hanging on to handles or something to go beyond. A good squat is about keeping your heels planted. If it feels like you feel it in the knees or the fronts of the shins during or after your workout, the body's very lazy. It always tries to find an easier way to get the job done. And on a vibration plate, what it'll do when you're first starting out is it shifts your weight forward to the balls of the feet. By less weight being on the heels is what transfers the movement to the rest of your body. That's the connection point. So if we take a little weight off the heels, you'll feel it's a little bit easier. It's not as hard. We don't want it to be hard, but we do want it to be effective. So make sure that we keep those heels planted and then see how low you can go. If you are dealing with troublesome joints, just starting out, not moving and just holding a static position, you should last 10 to 15 seconds. If you're lasting a minute, you're in better shape than you're giving yourself credit for. And maybe you want to turn that into some dynamic movement, very slow, very purposeful. My favorite way to do a squat with movement is adding the pelvic tilt we were doing as a warm-up. So how that looks is we come down, which is the back tilt, and on the way up, let's clench those butt cheeks and stay at about a mid squat. So we look like this. Down, up, clench those butt cheeks. Down, up, clench those butt cheeks. And if you're super coordinated, I've rambled 10 minutes. If you're super coordinated, let's add those goalposts or some hand weights or something else If you're in better shape or you're a little more conditioned and these exercises are too basic, modify the exercise. So on the up, bring those arms forward, back, forward, back. Or as I said, maybe you've got some hand weights. So you're going down, up. Do some bicep curls. Clenching those butt cheeks. Maybe we're doing some front raises. Out. You can do any of these with your armband exercises as well. Get lots of questions. If you did a bunch of videos on resistance bands, a lot of people ask me that. I'm a little klutzy, so I'm always tripping on them. And I honestly, when I am doing weighted exercises or resistance, I prefer using hand weights, my Life Pro dumbbells or my barbell set. But if you're starting out and you don't have a lot of strength built up, the armbands are a really good pull and resist exercise. They're exercising the arm on the way up and the way down. So you can look into those types of exercises and add those into your squats as well. Okay. So on the squat, if the goals are, to lose weight, substantial weight, it's a good idea to build something like this into your regular routine. If you can do them earlier in the day, it's going to boost your metabolism. It's going to help you burn more idle calories throughout the day because of that. Squats they're different for everybody. There's so many different benefits. A lot of us know as a weight loss or a strength tool, but for a lot of my seniors, your mobility, things like getting up out of the chair without having to use your hands. Squats contribute to a lot of our functional movements. So if you're not doing those type of exercises now, or if you look like this when you're trying to get up out of your chair, this is a good exercise to begin practicing. So the next one we're going to move on to are some step-ups. We're going to do a little bit of functional dynamic movement, okay? So I've moved the stool, and all we're going to do is we're going to start on the floor. If you're listening to some music or you want to time this with your breathing, the basic position, again, stepping on the plate, no more than hip width apart. We don't walk like this across the floor. Think functional, okay? So up. And swing the arms because it feels fancier. Moves more muscles, okay? For some of you with mobility or balance issues, the stepping up is not an issue. It's the stepping back down that can sometimes be scary. So an alternative I will give you is just keep stepping over. And turn around. Okay? If you only feel comfortable walking forward at this point, then do so and work on the stepping backwards when you feel more comfortable. Okay? For those of you that are okay with it, if this seems, like we're just going for a stroll and you want to pick up the pace, if you feel comfortable doing so, then pick up the pace. Go double time. Okay? Really depends on where you're at in your conditioning. It's a good way to get the heart rate elevated. If you do want to have a bit of a longer workout, you might want to throw a couple of sets of these in between all of your exercises. There's all kinds of ways that you can work this type of a movement in. I would suggest pushing for about a minute mark. If you're pushing for fatigue, you could go longer, or you could add another leg squat, something like that variety. Because I'm not completely myself today, I'm going to keep progressing. Want to make sure I still got my gals and everybody else here. Okay, so the next one we're going to move into is an on-the-ground upper body exercise before we get into the nice stuff. So the first one we're going to move into is what I call a modified push-up. A modified push-up is just a fancy way of saying I'm starting out and I can't do a push-up on my toes yet. So a modified push-up, you're on your knees, and by being on your knees, you're taking a lot of the body weight out of the equation. Before you make your moves hard, if you're trying to do fitness gains, just get good at doing the exercises themselves. Make sure the technique is there. The better your technique, the more effective your time on the plate's going to be. And a modified push-up is also a good way if you deal with upper body tension, you're dealing with shoulder issues, you're recovering from, You know, you want to start working these muscle groups. You want to get more lymph and circulation in those areas, but it's hard to do fitness type exercises. This can also have a lot of therapeutic benefit. So with an upper body position, the one tip I want to leave everybody with is your line of sight drives how much movement you get to your head. So if you are looking at your hands, meaning my head is positioned over my hands, vibration's going straight up. Push yourself slightly forward till the shoulders are in line with the hands, and you're going to eliminate 90% of the vibration. The other tip, just like when you're standing, don't go as wide as possible. Bring the hands closer, position them shoulder width or closer apart if you find there's too much action. Okay? If you have trouble doing upper body issues, that you have wrist problems, I've heard it all, and I've probably done a video twice about all of it. So if you want to look at something more specific, upper body coaching, search that on Life Pro's channel. I've done several. So on this one, again, I'm just on my knees. It's a little bit challenging because I've moved my knees back a bit. By doing so, you're incorporating more body weight. The longer your body is and the smaller the bend in your hips are, the more body weight you're getting into it. So on this one, I would suggest holding still, focus on breathing, kind of learn how to naturally position those hands where you want them to minimize the head vibration before you progress to something like this. If you're able to do something like that and you're doing regular push-ups right now, I feel my fever elevating. For those of you that have done upper body workouts with me, I don't like doing long durations. I like getting to a sweat and getting to the broke point quick. My favorite variation on a push-up is adding mountain climbers. So it's kind of like adding some plank work, so I'm getting additional abs. So mountain climbers look like this, where we're just pulling those knees up to the chest. Maybe you're a little bit more advanced. Maybe you want to add dynamic movement. It really depends on where you're at. If you're doing push-ups on the ground now, do the variations you're comfortable doing, but be mindful of your hand position and the line of sight. So get those hands lined up under the shoulders. I wish I would be lasting longer today, guys, but I'm really just not myself. Okay, so we started with some seated foot pumps and goalposts. We did some standing pelvic tilts. We added the goalposts, add some weights if you prefer. We moved into squats where we continued on a theme with those tilts. We just did the push-up, or we did the step-ups, then we did the push-up. Now we're going to get into the dessert. So since we're already down here on the ground, hint, hint, I'm just going to get a little bit more room for my legs here. So massage, there's lots of different areas that you can massage. Today I'm just going to do some of the more common, more popularly done ones. And I would say calves are a very popular one for some of the reasons I stated earlier. Many of you are dealing with varicose veins and congestion in the legs, pooling of fluid in the ankles. Maybe you're on your feet all day long. This is a great way to just chill, take advantage of the rush of lymph and circulation that the machine will give you. And if range of motion allows, I think you probably, if you have a plate now, have already experimented with some of this stuff. With a calf massage, couple tips: you want to keep the heels of the feet off the edge of the plate so the nice meaty part is on there. If you are tender to the touch, you bruise easily or you have sensitivities, feel free to add a mat. Depending on the body parts that you are massaging, you may need some padding. I've been doing this so long, I rarely do unless I'm on my knees or something like that. But if you do want to add some padding, just mat up your machine and it gives you a little bit of cushioning that way. With the calf massage, you can sit in this fashion. You can come down a little bit further, or if you really want to get into it, you can just lay right down and it gets the feet a little bit higher than the rest of the body, helps with the flow. You can also lift your bum up off the ground. gets more body weight into the equation. It gets the massage a little bit deeper. You can do stretches, touch the toes. Again, experiment while you're down here. The next one I'm going to move on to is the back of the thighs. Now with massage, I tend to do a higher speed. So in oscillating, I'm bringing mine up more to the 40-45 range. I've got a little bit more padding in these areas, so I can handle it. So depending on the length of your thighs and the size of the model that you purchased, I'm about just under 5'10", so I can get my thighs on the plate, but I can't get my thighs and my butt on the plate. I'll be doing that in 2 moves today. When you're sitting on the machine, you want to make sure you're just past the bend of the knees so your feet can rest on the floor. If you want more movement, just like standing, widen up the legs. Same with the calf massage. If you want less movement, bring them closer to the center. For a lot of you that are dealing with medical conditions, things like spasticity, that tightness in the back of the legs, maybe you've got restless leg, maybe you just want to, do some recovery after you had leg day at the gym. This is a great way to massage the quad, the back of the hamstrings directly. If you find it's too rattly in the head, a lot of people don't like how this feels. Just lean forward slightly to get the angle out of your spine, or you can lean backwards as well. Okay, just really experiment and play with what feels good. And on any of these massage positions, 1 to 2 minutes per position is really all that's needed. Okay, we're going to scooch up a little bit longer, a little bit further. Now my glutes are on the plate, and what you'll notice with your glutes on the plate, more movement to the upper body because the spine's part of the equation. The spine itself really isn't subjected to a whole lot of movement because you're sitting in the middle. It's the hips and the butt cheeks moving that you're feeling more so. So an add-on that I love to add with this one, and it'll be the last exercise I show you today. Many of you would love to do more upper body, and I know you want to tone and get some lymph into these areas. If you're able to do this position and get down on the ground, try adding the arms this way. Take your hands, palm down, and sit on them. Tuck them under your butt cheek, just where the butt cheek meets the top of the hamstring. Both sides. And as soon as you add them in there, you're going to start feeling a little bit movement in the shoulders, the shoulder blades, the neck. The arms are longer than the torso, so naturally you've got a bend in the arms. If you like how it feels, but you want it a little bit more intense, you just resist a little bit. Like your elbows are bent, but you're fighting the machine a little bit, and you'll feel it. It amplifies it a bit. If it's too much on the head and you don't like how it feels, you can lean forward in this one as well. I personally love how it feels in the head and the neck, but I've been doing this 20 years, so maybe it's shook me that way. I like to sit up straight purposefully, and I lean my head over, and I roll my neck, my shoulders. Once you kind of learn by playing with your angles and how to direct the stimulation to different areas, then you can control where you're trying to target and manipulate. If you want, and you're experimenting with these exercises for the first time on the ground and you feel like it's too much, make sure that you're not fighting and resisting. When you fight and resist the vibration machine, you're not allowing the muscles to move naturally. You become rigid. And if anything, you actually amplify the intensity. So just try and relax. If it feels too strong in any exercise, it's modifying the hands, the feet, the legs closer to the center and oscillating. It's one of the huge advantages in oscillating, which there's lots of different movements out there. There's also lots of different opinions. This one's better than that one. There's not better, there's different. But what I can tell you is oscillating movement is more preferred by more users. Why? Because that's how we move. That's how we walk. It just feels more natural. It's less invasive on the head than some of the vertical or linear styles, which have lots of science as well, but they tend to be louder. They do tend to have less adjustability in their settings. And one of the huge advantages that oscillating brings over any other movement because of it mimicking that natural movement of walking is we're ever perpetually being challenged on this plate to stay upright. Our balance and our stability is dramatically boosted, even within the course of one session, regardless of what you're doing on the plate. That's a lot of the reason many of my therapists will use it. They use it as a pre-treatment before other therapies because it gets you more stable, it gets you more relaxed, it reduces your pain, and heck, it even puts you in a better mood. So you're more pleasant to be working with. I can't say enough about these machines, but I certainly don't expect you to learn it all overnight. So the sooner I can get you shaking and experimenting with confidence, the less there's fear and this thing staying in the box. It's the new year. I challenge any of you who have gotten a plate recently, if you're fearful for any reason, there isn't a medical condition on the planet that can't benefit from using a vibration plate. It's having the experience and understanding of how to modify some of the exercises and the way we do them to maybe suit where you are in your recovery or your injury type of thing. So if you have had recent surgery, you're dealing with chronic or acute symptoms, never hesitate to use the search function on the VIP or the main group. 9 times out of 10, myself, Roseanne, or Amber have done a session on most topics. And many of you are dealing with deficiencies, whether it be that short or long-term issues. There's always a way to modify. And one of the appeals of a vibration plate, of course, is it does present less impact. So it's in many ways a better way to begin or return to activity than some of the traditional means that are for many of my clients just not possible. So I hope that was helpful. I see that I still have Crystal here with me. Now is your chance. If you have questions, if there's something you're just not sure about specific to vibration plates, if I could today, feel free to type a question in the queue. If there's a move you're curious about or something you didn't understand I talked about, I invite your questions. Judy says, Rachel Christine. I don't know if you're tagging someone or if you're saying hello. Hi, Judy. And I have quite a few of you here today. This is awesome. I love doing holidays because that's when you guys are home and listening to my ramblings. For those of you that might be watching this on a recorded basis, if there's any questions that you do have, or perhaps someone joining me today, I've rambled over your brain and you don't think about something until after the fact, never hesitate to tag me at Debby with a Y. Then I'll get the notification and everyone will get the benefit of seeing my response. I do need to mention that as it is a new year, there's some new deals on the menu with Life Pro. There is still some items up to 50% off. Many I haven't looked up what today's deal is though. Today's featured item is the Aleve Red therapy belt, which is always, it's a pretty popular item. If you're not shopping this sale, right on Life Pro's main website, tab on the top where you can see that. My plate goes to 100, so do I start at 50? Yes, that's what I would suggest, Deborah. Try a mid-speed range and play, within the 40 to 60 range, and bring those feet closer together. You could certainly experiment with some of the slower speeds, but I think you'll find when you bring the feet a little closer, a little more functional, and bring that speed up, not only are you getting a smoother movement, but you're going to get to where you want to be a little bit quicker. You're getting more movements when you're on the plate, and it just feels a little smoother and less choppy. Much kinder if you're dealing with chronic issues. Debbie, you have nice form in your arms. Is that by utilizing weights on your platform? Sometimes, yes. I'm kind of out of season right now. I'm a very physical person in my work, as you can see. A lot of my arms comes from moving this equipment around and getting it set up for all the lives, but I still homeschool my daughter. I have a couple of big dogs. I don't do anything else exercise wise for purpose. Like I don't do the gym. I don't have time for such things. For 20 years, my life has been the vibration plate. If I want to be like show girl and I'm going to some fitness show and I want to build up a little bit, I'll increase. But for the most part, my tone is direct exercises, doing the push-ups, planks. I like putting my arms on the ground. I don't like my forearms on the machine. And then if I want to bulk up or build up beyond my size, I do. I love the Triform set with the barbell and the kettlebell. I also have a pair of Life Pros adjustable dumbbells, which are awesome, depending on how I'm feeling. I'm menopausal, and post 50, it's not just a bone density thing, but your muscle mass and things begin to change. So I'm trying to be more mindful of incorporating more weight bearing and resisting versus my traditional exercises. I do like my push-ups. How many times a day do you recommend to use my waiver? Susan, it really depends on what you're using it for. How many times a day should you go for a walk? Or how many times a day should you go for a run? They're both similar activities, but they both kind of have different outcomes. So how often you can use your machine really depends on one of two things. The two ways that I see people using them are for symptom management, the feel-good stuff, or for fitness. So if you're using it for symptom management, you've got chronic swelling, you're dealing with lymphedema or chronic pain, I'll admit it, I have people using it 10, 15 times a day, but it might be only for a moment or two. If you want to use your machine more frequently, and don't anybody put me into a box on time. How long do you go for a walk? How long do you go for a run? It's very much an individual thing. I wish I was the trainer that would say, just set it at this number and go for this long, and the machine's going to do all the thinking. I really do try to educate you, and through the education, I empower you with how long you do stuff based on the goals you're trying to accomplish. So if it's symptom management and you're just starting out, you'll probably find yourself using it more often, but keep those durations and the intensity, the feet, conservative. If you're training, if you're looking at doing athletic stuff, you guys got to be honest with yourself on the fitness. You can just stand there and gain some benefit, but long term, you do have to engage yourself, get into exercises that are associated with whatever the goals are. If you want to lose 80 to 100 pounds, you probably need to be doing things like squats and other things. So if you're working on fitness positions, you should be pushing for fatigue. In a position, I would say you should be dying within 30 seconds to a minute. So how long that total workout's going to be is really going to depend on the number of exercises. But I do caution a lot of people, get a machine first day, take it out of the box, and you're going twice for 30 minutes, and then you're messaging me tomorrow saying, well, there's something wrong with my machine because it hurt me, or I couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. Realize there's a lot going on in a short period, and if you are dealing with anything chronic or recovery, or you're just deconditioned, be conservative. I'd rather you do more tomorrow than overdo it today and be itchy and up all night because you're so exhilarated. So just be conservative in your time and intensity. Susan wants to learn for bone density. So bone density is a big, it's a mismarketing thing out there. I'll be honest with you. A lot of companies will say you have to use this setting or you have to go for that long. Bone density is about bearing your mass, whether that's on the floor, whether it's on a machine. Why it's easier on a machine is you can get more muscular activity done that's kinder on the joints. And what a vibration plate does in essence is it superficially increases your exposure to gravity and all the associated health benefits. Bone density is built, but we don't feel it, but we're naturally resisting the gravitational pull of the earth. And if we're not upright or doing exercises where we're bearing our mass, sometimes medical treatment, sometimes health conditions deteriorate the bones. But as far as improving your bone density, I'll tell you, Susan, the best bone density results I have seen over my years are from people that are simply using their plates consistently. So the big thing with bone density is get a good relationship with this thing, figure out what feels good for you. Doesn't mean that you're using it just for bone density. I would suggest with bone density, the first thing if it's severe, you're dealing with, osteoporosis or the balance and stability isn't there, is the balance and stability. Nobody ever died of osteoporosis. It's the fall, it's the break, and the lack of recovering from it. So the best reason to use your plate right now is to get good balance and to get you more stable so that you can progress into other things. But using it regularly, bearing weight or partially bearing weight. A lot of my clients will start in the chair, and just by exposing the lower legs, if you're dealing with
later stages of things like neuropathy or drop foot, and the falling isn't, the bones are weak, but if you fall, if that kind of mentality and fear is there, the plate is a great way to bridge the gap to get you upright, get you weight bearing, so that you can progress and go from there. If you search in Life Pro's pages, bone density and Debby with a Y, you're going to see about 5 or 6 different sessions. I've done all kinds of skill sets, so depending on where you're at as well. I hope that helps, Susan. Deborah wants to get toned. So toning, to me, it's one of those words that means something different to everybody. So tone to me is, you're within 10, 15 pounds of where you want to be, and we're just trying to define things. That would be doing exercises specific to what you're trying to tone. So with me, for example, if it's the arms, I like my upper body positions, or while I'm doing my standing positions, maybe adding some dynamic movements or adding some weight to those dynamic movements, the resistance bands. You guys got all kinds of things that come with the machines as well. If it's the legs, squats are my go-to. I'm not I don't like 15, 20 moves. I was very active in my youth, but I was never an exercise for purpose person. I got into this because I blew out my knee, and I had a doctor tell me that I was just fat and old and I needed a knee replacement. So that's why I got into this, and I've never stuck with anything in my whole life. And here I am 20 years later teaching you guys about the machines. So consistency worked for me. If I derail and the definition isn't what I like it to be, I don't know if you were here earlier, I do add a little bit of mass. Adding mass is a good way to boost bone density as well, boost the calorie burn, but it's a really good way to get some definition going on certain areas as well. I hope that makes sense. Awesome, Susan. Susan, a lot of my folks I wanted to add that are dealing with severe osteo symptoms are really, really fearful. So if you don't have a bar height stool, invest in one. I've got several, but the reason you want to use a bar height stool is I want you to be at a good 90 degree with the legs. I don't want you downhill with the hips like you're trying to get up out of some old sofa. If you're just using it for a feel, that's great. But long term, if you do find you're going to be doing some time seated, I recommend getting something that's a little bit higher up, because depending on the plate you're using, you're going to be lifting your feet up off the ground 6 to 8 inches. So you got to compensate that with a higher stool. It also gives you something to hang on to. You'll see that in some of my videos. And what else? So Deborah wants to get toned. I hope that answered your questions, Deborah. If there's any areas specific that you're having trouble targeting, let me know. I know the core, a lot of it, well, I want to have a big 6-pack. Crunches ain't going to do it. And all the trainers out there can get mad at me all you want. I don't like crunches. I certainly don't like them on a vibration plate. They're a good defining move, but they don't burn a whole lot of calories. Most people do them wrong, and you're wrenching your neck. I prefer planks or doing movement and engaging my core while I'm standing on the machine. If I could get everything done in 3-4 moves, which you'll see is the theme with a lot of my workouts, I got other things to do. And I like to use my machine multiple times a day. So my workout in the morning is generally pretty short, pretty intense, and then I get on with other things. And maybe I come back and do a little bit more later. Or maybe I do some massage. It really depends on how I feel. Yodong, hello. Thank you, Debbie. This session was very helpful for me as a new user. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the future. If you're joining me from the Natural Health Library, which I'm a big fan of, Andrew's got a whole bunch of great information in there. If you're in the Life Pro pages, again, use the search function. And I've done almost like 200 plus sessions, Amber at least as well, probably double, triple that, same with Amber. But use that search function. And sometimes if you're a new user, just say, vibration machine, new user, or vibration machine starting out, those type of terms. You'll see lots of stuff in there. And I've got some short videos on my own channel, but I think you'll find you get lost literally for weeks in the video catalogs that Life Pro's got for you guys here. Susan is okay standing. Awesome. So if you're okay standing, it's still nice to have a stool. If you want to take a break or you're pushing yourself in squats, but sometimes when you're pushing yourself, it's nice to have, this doesn't have a back, but it's nice to have something, even though you don't need it for the balance, sometimes mentally you feel like you do, if that makes sense. And the reason sometimes to keep it behind you, if you're working on things like the squats, where I've mentioned, this used to happen in my studio classes all the time. My seniors, they had the time and they showed up and they were willing to do the work. They wanted to regain that function. But a lot of times they'd be working their squats so hard they couldn't stand back up. So you can just plop back down in the stool if you, good for you if you fatigue, but sometimes you push to the point where it's hard on the plate to get that last push if you've pushed to that point, which is great because that's where I want you to go. But if you go just a little too far, the stool is a nice place to just plop down and recover. I hope that makes sense. And then adding mass. I've mentioned that a few times. If you don't have weights or dumbbells and things like that around the house, everybody's got things they can use around the house. Grab a backpack, throw a bag of sugar or a bag of rice on it. Let your grandkid, give them a piggyback while you're doing your squats. A lot of the reason my seniors want to get more mobile and strong is not only to stay independent, but you want to partake in life and you lift weights throughout the course of your day, whether you're picking up your dog or your kid or putting on your boots. I like to mimic functional things. I haven't done it on Life Pro's channel, but I do a series every fall where it's shoveling, snowboarding and shoveling. I put a snowboard right on this thing and practice the moves that way. And I've also stood on it with a snow shovel and a baseball bat and golf. And the vibration plate is just an environment. So whatever your sport, whatever your activity, this is an off season for me. So there's certain activities I'm not doing regularly. So it's nice. It's a good way to keep those muscles conditioned in the off seasons too. Deborah Ann, with just starting out, do you recommend taking it slow? I'm interested in tightening and firming. Well, if you watch the whole set, the word slow to me is almost a 4-letter word, not in the form of speed. I recommend starting conservatively. So conservative on time and intensity. Speed, I want you cranking up actually. So I want you at a mid-speed range, but I don't want your feet ridiculously wide. There's 2 things you control. So closer feet and a faster speed. Slow is choppy and wobbly and oscillating. I hope that makes sense. And if you're just starting out, I would prefer you, especially if you're dealing with things like fatigue or weakness, or maybe you're just sedentary and you don't get out a lot. Use it more often, but use it in 2 to 5 minute spurts. You don't have to go the whole 10, 15 minutes. The number one thing that people do when they get a vibration machine is they overdo it in a couple of different ways. Too wide a feet, too slow a speed, and you suck it up for 10 minutes and just don't do it. Keep it short. Just because the machine is set for 10 minutes doesn't mean you have to go max time. And if you're just getting off the couch for the first time in a decade, you should know better. If you were going for a jog around the block, you'd quit long before. You wouldn't push yourself that same distance. But while you're on the machine, it just feels so good and it's exhilarating. Short durations are going to give you energy. They're going to make you stable. If you're pushing for strength and fatigue and those type of things, maybe start some of those later in the day so that you don't drain all the energy that you do have by doing your session first thing. And just give yourself the first week or 2 to experiment. Don't worry about getting into some big program or routine. Learn what you like, what you don't like, what feels good for you standing this way or that way, and experiment before you get into the commitment of work. Sometimes if you throw a big, exercise program in front of you, it's just intimidating and the thing stays in the box. Look at it as playing with it and give your body a couple of weeks. There's all kinds of newbie stuff people go through. I'll touch on that very, very briefly. Things like being itchy, increase in circulation and lymphatic and detox. Some people feel energized. If you're coming from a place of chronic fatigue and you have energy, please don't overdo it. It's so easy to overdo it because you're going to blame the machine the next day. What happens with people with chronic fatigue and they get an energy boost from a machine, You go paint the house and you do a week's worth of laundry and then you scrub the toilets. And then tomorrow, when you're all pooped out and sore, you blame me saying it's the vibration machine. No, no, no. 9 times out of 10, it's you felt so good after. It was all this other stuff you did. So be conservative also in what you do after starting out, because it really does just make you feel like a rock star. And if you're using it to manage your pain or chronic issues, I'll never put a limit on it. But those are good examples of using it more often for just a minute or two. Think more like a spot treatment than a workout. And that's a good way to just become familiar with your plate, whichever model you're using. Any model is going to give you any of the benefits associated with the claims, but picking the right machine is often associated with how you're using it. You know, a lot of people want something small and more portable. They can move around, especially if you're using it as a symptom management tool. Maybe you've got a dedicated workout space and you've already got the discipline and you want, you know, something with a few more features like the plus or one of the turbos or the Hoverts. So there's never one machine is never going to get the job done more often or more better. Oh, my throat is going. But it's what you do on the machine, and most importantly, being consistent in using it that's going to bring all those longer term benefits, the strength, the bone density, those type of things. Short term, it's about getting those symptoms underway, improving you from where you're at and giving you a little bit of confidence to progress with the rest of it. Which Life Pro is better? No such thing. Better for what? Better for you, better for me, better for a condition. It really depends on what you do on the plate. I did do a very short video on my own channel about selecting the best plate for you. The best plate is the one that best suits what you're going to use it for. And sometimes that's the littlest machine because all you're doing is using it under your desk. It really depends on your intended use. I will never offer you this is a cookie cutter approach to getting to the finish line because each of you are just two individuals. So the best machine from a performance standpoint, most of Life Pro's machines are very, very similar. You get a little bit more performance and features, of course, as you get more movements and features in some of the Rumblex. But the more features and ways that a machine moves, the more motors and components as well. So you're never going to get a machine that moves 3 ways and does all the things that the Rumblex machines do in the Mini. You know, it's just not the way that it works. The Mini is singular movement. It's compact. It's light enough so that you can be moving it around. I work with a lot of special needs where people, they're unable to bear their own weight. I'm using lifts. I'm using standing cages. And to be honest with you, a 60 to 70 pound machine doesn't work for me. I need something light and little. And as I said, all of my coaching is an oscillating movement. If you do have a machine that offers pulsation, which is a form of vertical movement, it's very similar to most of the vertical machines being sold out there. So you're kind of getting 2 machines in one that way. It also offers lateral. Lateral, I don't do lots of sessions in, but a lot of my chronic lymph users like it as a variety to mix things up. It's a good way to not get the buzz in the head. But oscillating is going to give you more of the balance and the stability piece, which is a lot what I coach to with the bone density too. So all my coachings are always in oscillating. All of Life Pro's models offer oscillating movement because it is the foundational movement. I hope that makes sense. And I'll put a link to that video in here after if you did want to see that one, Karina. Karina also says, I broke my ankle 3 years ago and I'm still struggling. Oh, that sucks. Probably a combination of scar tissue. I don't know if you have any pins or anything in there. Is it painful, Karina, or what kind of things have you been doing as far as activity, or what can you do? If you can answer that to me, I'll maybe give you a couple of tips, and I'm going to find a torture tool while I do that. This is one of my torture tools. So Karina is dealing with a broke ankle, and I'm going to suspect that you need to start getting things moving in there, maybe before you get to some exercise type stuff, especially if you're dealing. Sometimes I've seen some ankles where there's been all kinds of things, limit your mobility, or maybe you're dealing with some pins or some hinges or all kinds of plates in there. None of these things are contraindications in my world, by the way. If you are dealing with ankle issues, the first exercise I did, which was the foot pump, might be a little challenging. And it may be challenging for some of you if you lack stability. I take a pool noodle and I cut it the width of the plate to offer some support. So to start working the calves in a calf raise, what I do here is I've wedged the pool noodle under the back of my heels. So I'm sort of halfway up. And this is a good way to just sort of get the movement started, especially if you're a little bit fearful, Karina. The other way that you can do it is move it forward under the balls of the feet to allow the heel to touch. So this is raising the toes without you physically having to do it if you're not able yet. This is a really good tool. I like incorporating that if you've got neuropathy, drop foot. This is a good way to get into the arches and just massage the feet. There's body parts that don't lay flat directly on the plate. So a pool noodle is soft and squishy, unlike a traditional roller. So it's just going to help transmit. It's going to get the resonance of the vibration up into those areas that may not be in direct contact with the plate. So if you're dealing with anything ankle, heel, knee, I use this on the back of my knee. This is something maybe to consider, Karina. And what I would suggest, yes, it is really painful and also gain weight because of it. Yeah, it's kind of hard to burn calories when your feet are so, a lot of people don't realize, but your feet, there's so many things our feet tell our brain. Every time we're walking across the floor, there's all these neurological messages going back and forth. And when there's pain in those feet, your body doesn't want to do anything. So I would suggest, Karina, just start by getting your feet used to it. If you have a plate, get a mat it up, and just start getting some circulation and some lymph going in the feet, seated. If you want to search in Life Pros groups, Debby with a Y, seated, I think you'll probably find quite a few videos come up. I never use shoes. Don't use your shoes if you're trying to get better contact with the feet. Sometimes there are reasons to wear shoes, but for this specifically, I prefer to see you work towards barefoot once you're comfortable. But just get some basic movement going. And if there's any exercises that you're supposed to be doing as prescribed by your PT or your doctor, or I know this was quite some time ago. So if there were exercises you were supposed to be doing, a vibration plate is an awesome tool because it reduces the time and effort you have to spend doing that exercise. So if there's any stretches, things that you were supposed to be doing or do now, the vibration plate is just going to give you more benefit in less time. I have also done sessions specifically to feet and ankles. So you might want to do a search that way, but having a broken foot or a repaired foot is not a contraindication. It's the pain and things like that short term we want to address before we get into more functional weight loss and some of that other stuff. So let's renovate the house from the ground up, starting with the foundation, which is the feet. So just start getting used to your plate if you have one, how it feels. And what I'm going to warn you is in areas of surgery or past injury, there's a very common, not everybody, but there's a very common thing when you're starting out on a vibration plate. It's itchy, like this pins and needles sensation that you get. That represents lymph and circulation, as I mentioned earlier. But if you're dealing with a compromised area of scar tissue and nerve damage, it tends to be heightened in that area. And I don't want to spook you, but anyone that's got metal hardware, whether it's a screw or a plate or anything else, no, it's not going to shake that loose. Anyone that says those things has no clue what they're talking about. But you may feel it differently. So as the vibration is in those areas, metal is not tissue, it's not muscle, it's not bone. So as the vibration, the resonance goes through that, you kind of feel it in the surrounding areas a little bit more. So it just makes it like a little tickle or an itch. You feel it more in those areas because the blood flow and all those other things are more compromised. So as things improve, this itchiness I talk about, which is very common in the legs for my ladies, it tends to dissipate within a week or two of regular use. So if you've tried a vibration machine and you stopped because of this horrific itch or potential allergic reaction you thought you were having, you probably went too long another reason not to go so long. But it's very normal to have that reaction. If you have a condition which is not too common, but common enough that I will discuss it, called MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome, it's not uncommon when you begin new activity or have an increase in activity that this itch is super heightened, even to the point of getting hives I've seen on people. You have an elevated histamine response with this condition. It's not a vibration machine thing, but whatever steps you may have taken in the past, if you've taken antihistamines or some herbal supplements, or you've got lotions or potions, if you're dealing with MCAS or suspect you may have MCAS, you probably already know what I'm talking about. But if you do have a severe itchy reaction, it might be something not at all related to the vibration plate, and I would look into MCAS further. I've talked about that in a lot of my sessions too. Yes, it is really painful and also gain weight. So, okay, that was Karina's last comment. I hope that answered your question. We got to get rid of the pain, girl, before we can push you into other things, and it can absolutely do that. Pain is a symptom of something else. So it's a good thing to listen to throughout the course of the day, like any of your symptoms. So I've mentioned a couple of times using it more often. Well, when should I use it? When your body tells you, when those symptoms start presenting, when they start increasing. If you're not by your plate during the day, maybe you're in a work situation where you're only home in the morning and at night, try using it a little bit before you head out the door and for a couple of minutes before you get home, just to manage and chip away at all this tension and pain and whatever has built up. But if you do have access to your plate during the day, use it when your body tells you, when you need energy, when you're hurting, when you have swelling, when your back aches. Well, maybe you've been sitting at your desk for 4 hours. Let your body drive when you should use it. And what I will say with symptom management, you might notice for the first month or so that you are using it more frequently, but eventually you're not going to need to use it for as long and for as often, because you're improving. And as long as you're sticking and being consistent with it, that's where you're going to see all the other long-term stuff like the bone density and the weight loss. It's the consistent regular use and sticking with it. I just want to make it should be a pleasant experience. If you don't like how it feels, you're not going to use it anyway. So get comfortable, confident, and progress after a couple of weeks into some more structure. Karina says, thank you. Again, I hope that was helpful. And I've also done one on pre and post surgery with something like a broken ankle repair or a hip replacement. It really depends on when your doc says you can resume activity. A lot of people go running to their doctor and say, oh, how soon can I use my vibration plate? He doesn't know what it is in most cases. So of course he's going to say no and maybe laugh sometimes. But the reality is, for those of you that have been using it regularly and then you have a setback and you have to take a break from it, 9 times out of 10, you miss it, at least for the lymph. That's the number one thing that people use these machines for. Is it's the easiest way on the planet to get some lymph moving, or when you move, lymph moves. And if you lack the ability to move, this can do it for you. That's the biggest appeal. But long term, as other things start improving, hopefully we can progress to doing other things. So the best advice I can give you is to just start getting used to it. Give your body a week or two to get assimilated, as I call. And then once you know what kind of settings feel good for you, where you like your feet, pick a couple of the basic exercises that I've presented today or in some of my other sessions, and keep it simple. It's going to be a lot easier to stick with it, whatever the goals are, whether they're just health related or fitness, and get good at the few exercises that you are doing. And if you want to get into more elaborate routines, you can look at some of the videos we've offered here. Go to the gym and maybe work with a trainer for a month, or maybe you've done things like that in the past and it's just a matter of dusting off moves that you already know how to do. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel. Just use this thing consistently. I hope that helps. Where am I from? I personally, I'm right now about an hour north of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I am a Canadian. Yes. We've got about 1.5 feet of snow outside today. I specialized in vibration plates for just about 20 years, starting with my own health journey like you guys. I had a doctor told me I was old and fat, and that was my only option, was a partial knee replacement. My first vibration machine was a German medical device, though, so a little bit different than what we're talking about here today. But the passion of using it and how it has empowered me with changes in my health, I can't speak enough of. And I'm privileged to be here every week with Life Pro to share some of those benefits with you. If you have any questions, I'm just going to ask one more time. And if not, I'm going to let you go on with your first day of 2025. If you're watching this, as I say, on a recorded basis, or perhaps you think of something after the fact that you'd like to ask me, just tag me at Debby with a Y, and I'll be sure to get back to you. I will be here again next week. I think I'm scheduled for Tuesday, but I am here once a week, typically on some awareness topics. My sessions do tend to be a little bit longer. If you want to just get to the workout, I have done some of those as well. It really depends on what you guys are looking for. But I want to make sure you have a good handle of how you control your experience on this machine through the settings. And if you ever have any setbacks or questions, never hesitate to reach out. I wish you a successful 2025, and I hope to keep you motivated in using your plate for a long time to come. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and Happy New Year.